Hello everyone, welcome to Remarkable Boutique Hotels, where we talk about outstanding experiences and everything that leads to them. Today we'll talk about how every part of business backend, like your organization, communication, culture, understanding of common goals and so on, how is all that connected to guest experience. I'll give you some specific examples showing how these things appear in practice. Let's dive in. Many hotel owners assume great guest experience in their head, right? Or at least the way they intended it to be. Most of you have a clear picture in your head of how it should look like, but the problem is that picture isn't what happens in reality. Why is that? Well, guest experience is not only about interactions or delivering up to standards. It's more than that. Not to say that these are easy, but guest experience is everything that you offer and deliver to a guest, including the way you do it, meaning how you show up and how you run your business. For example, communication between maintenance team, housekeeping team, and IT department might look like it's out of scope when talking about guest experience, but it's absolutely not. Let's say a Bluetooth speaker in one room is broken and maintenance team replaces it with another speaker which happens to be of another brand. So someone should tell housekeeping and IT department to remove or update the note both in paper and in iPad where it says that that particular speaker from that particular brand can be bought by a guest when what? In fact, there is no such speaker in the room anymore. Moreover, when maintenance team doesn't know this clearly, they may even leave that brand for good. And the matter doesn't even end here because, for example, the question could be why there is another brand in the supply at all and how the procurement process in your company looks like. Like those are kinds of questions that will definitely influence your numbers in business. Yes, furthermore, like having that particular brand in rooms is probably part of hotel's branding. So it's very likely a guest will notice it and see it as hotel's failure, because if you communicate something and are kind of proud of it, in this case having speaker of well-known brand, make sure you actually have it. In case you're thinking, come on, that can't be such a big deal, right? Guests don't care about it. You're right. Guests don't seem to care much for such things, but this will stay in their head subconsciously as kind of sloppy behavior. And remember that saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. So they might find themselves doubting in some other services as well, since trust was already broken. Even if it's just slightly, that red flag will show up as them holding back and being a bit more reserved when you're giving your best to make an impression. So it's easy to say, and it's easy to take things for granted when they're obvious for you. You just assume everyone understands some things, but not everyone are thinking the way you do, and not everyone have the same inputs you do. We tend to say something is common sense when it's not. So it's not enough for everyone doing their job diligently. People need context, inputs, outputs, and someone to connect those. And that's actually when they can outperform. And when it becomes busy, your team also needs things such as procedures, reminders, briefings, creative directors, directions, everything so on, right? Because even the best can't think of every detail every time. We all need guidance, supporting structure so we can give our best on top of that. For example, having hardworking, efficient housekeeping team sounds great, but let's say a morning team never takes a note of a guest not watching TV, therefore pulling it back into the wall, or putting a specific item like those ceramic water bottles, which was placed on a night table by evening team back on its original place. That way, that perfect service is not so perfect anymore, but annoying to a guest. Your mission should be to understand guest routines, not to do your procedures perfectly. So, what should happen ideally? Morning team should notice all these kinds of details and pass information. Maybe you have ways to clarify in the meantime so that turn down team during evening service doesn't do it again and doesn't disturb actual guests' evening routines. Maybe instead you play music they like or give them a book of a genre they like, if that's something you discovered they prefer. Or maybe they do use these things but just like to put them back, I don't know, but it's still something to be confirmed and guests will appreciate it. So that's putting a real guest experience over procedures. And that's an example of using context rather than just doing day-to-day business without major issues. Hotel operations and standards should be in service of a relevant, specific quality which leads to satisfied guest because it depends on that specific guest. And this doesn't even require extra work if that is important. Like if your guests are your ideal guests, the ones who share your values and enjoy your hotel concept, right? Because in this case, you're accommodating their needs and wants, which are closely related to your hotel's identity and character already. So it's not enough that you and your team are putting lots of effort. Guests are not paying for that effort, but for the value you provide and you create for them, which then they perceive, that value can be below guest expectations, it can be just fine, or it can be outstanding and extraordinary. Again, still, maybe you're thinking you have all these departments running, everyone doing their job the best they can, you have procedures in place, even regular meetings going on, maybe you are on the floor most of the time, guests looking normal, just fine, and everything is as usual. And look, that's fine with me. But here we're discussing outstanding guest experience, providing above and beyond service, and charging appropriately for it. So if that's where you see your hotel, you need to question if those meetings you have are efficient or a waste of time, if procedures are centered around real life situations and specific guests, or just smartly written documents no one finds useful, or if you in general have built a brand which is reliable but also doesn't stand out among other hotels. It's not like you're doing wrong things. But not every effort is what creates a value for guests. It's one of those moments when you realize your team, looks busy when instead they should work smarter, not harder. For example, in a busy dining room, servers will tend to move faster and serve everyone efficiently, when instead they're not providing enough attention to each table. They're bringing in the impatience and rush in the dining room instead of flow and confidence that everything is under control. And that doesn't mean it's truly like that, but that's how it looks, and that's what's important for guest experience, right? Notice, I'm not saying here that getting food quickly to the table as soon as ready is not imperative. It is, but also rushing the experience and bringing adrenaline in dining room is not what your guests want to experience. In order to look calm, while going through, let's call it controlled chaos, that takes great coordination across all teams, professional skills of your people, genuine care for guest experience, But prior to that, understanding what that guest experience is supposed to look like, which also means knowing your hotel's values and concept. So all these are inner systems that work as enablers for that smooth, pleasant guest experience. You and your team have two perspectives to focus on, and that's front end and back end. Guests directly see your front end, things like steps in service, service style, behavior, tension, expertise, or being lost in whatever one's doing. But that front end relies on your back end. And it doesn't matter how hard you're actually working if you're not bringing value to a guest. So you can't have stable success if you don't have both of these perspectives figured out, right? Both front end and back end, because they complement each other. You want to think in terms of added value for a guest and then create seamless execution. Let me repeat that again. Added value for guests, not just business, and then supporting systems in back end for seamless execution. This will create an effect of guests getting huge value immediately and effortlessly. This is a super important equation for boutique hotels, really. So when you're able to provide outstanding guest experience consistently without drama, pressure, chaos, that means you've also created proven systems that support you and your team throughout time, which is how extraordinary sustainable businesses are managed. I think that was plenty for today. Go and implement something from this right now, today. So until next occasion, have a beautiful experiences, my friends. Thank you for listening. Here at Remarkable Boutique Hotels, we want your hotel to be worth every penny and every second of your guests. Schedule a discovery call to find more about our remarkable methodology, which is unique in the whole hospitality industry. I would love to hear your hotel story. See you there.